This area in Atlanta is the Sweet Auburn district. That's where Martin Luther King Jr. grew up. And even today, there is a lot that is still reminiscent of Martin Luther King Jr., including the King Center, the historic park, and Ebenezer Baptist Church. A social activist and a Baptist minister, he would have been 96 years old if he was here today.
It's a very deeply historic area for the Black community, as well as those that fight for freedom every day. It represents a beginning and a rebirth of our fight for rights, civil rights, homeless housing, better wages, hourly wages, more affordable housing in Atlanta, which we need desperately.
The third Monday of every January is recognized as Martin Luther King Day after it was signed into law back in 1983. After King's death, his wife, Coretta Scott King, established the King Center in 1968 in Atlanta.
I currently live in Florida, but I drove up for King Holiday. This holiday is incredibly important because it not only makes us remember and gives us a moment of pause to reflect on the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., as well as Mrs. Coretta Scott King, but it also gives us an opportunity to connect with one another in a shared space where we prioritize nonviolence as a way of life.
King led the civil rights movement, pushing for change and equality through nonviolence.
We are still in this movement for civil rights. We can't sit back in America and think that everything is okay. I think that Martin Luther King, when I sat in his lap as a little girl, and just remember, he was the kindest, most gentle man, but he could also turn into a fierce tiger in front of state troopers.
Now, to honor him, people say there's so many things you can do. It's not a day off, but a day on. People are dropping off donations, clothing items. There are other people here handing out free coffee to remember what he would stand for, even here today.
He would want people to act. Love is a verb. And he would want us to find something we could pour ourselves into, whether it's senior citizens, health care, whether it's homelessness, or whether it's housing for those that are in the middle class that are struggling.
Activists say during segregation, African Americans could not go into theaters or restaurants and faced barriers in housing, education, and employment.
I think the words and the qualities that inspire me are definitely around making sure that we really look at our personal commitment. Why are we here? What are we really committed to as people? I think it's also important to remember to love our neighbor, right? And to really be intentional about the way that we show up for one another.
His legacy continues to live on with the idea of nonviolence and pushing for change so that we can create equality for all Americans. The King Center's theme this year is Mission Possible, protecting freedom, justice, and democracy. Reporting in Atlanta, Archit Seshadri, Atlanta Bureau Chief.